I'm with Joe McNally from the Bethlehem Care and Hospice Trust. Now, Joe, what is the Bethlehem Care and Hospice Trust?
The Bethlehem Care and Hospice Trust is a charity that's founded and registered in the UK and in Scotland and is registered as a foreign NGO in the occupied Palestinian territories. It was set up at the request of community leaders in Bethlehem. And when they asked us if we would, well, they pointed out that a hospice was a dire need and asked us if we would help them achieve that. And that was in 2018. So we did, and we've set up a hospice at home, a service in Bethlehem.
How important are the services that you provide to the community?
Well, we feel, and the feedback we get are that they're very important because we are the only licensed provider of specialist palliative care service to the Bethlehem or the community within the Bethlehem Governorate. And we, apart from supporting the people in the Bethlehem Governorate, but we also found that as we embarked on this journey, that Bethlehem has the highest reported cases of cancer within the OPT.
So these are vulnerable people. So this work is very, very important, isn't it?
Well, we think so. And we have spent a lot of time and energy and resources in setting up an operation in Bethlehem. And we've set up a hospice at home service. We don't have the funds to set up an embedded hospice unit. When we started on this journey, we had a professional assessment made of the requirements for hospice care in Bethlehem. And the result of that was that we would need at least a 10-bedded, fully staffed unit to care for the needs of the Bethlehem Governorate. And that was beyond our resources. Then, as we were wrestling with that, COVID came and destroyed us, really. It stopped all of the fundraising. It stopped all of the social interaction. It stopped us doing things here. But we used the time, we think, well, in that we set up an operations committee in Bethlehem to oversee that which we were intending to do and to advise us as to how to best do it. And then we set up a couple of other committees. One was clinical governance, professionally staffed to oversee the treatment aspects of it. And we set up a financial governance committee to look at and tell us how the financial aspects of it. We then appointed a young lady over there, Rasha Shamia, who used to be with Deloitte and is an accountant and auditor, as our finance officer and CEO. And that started us. We didn't have, truthfully, the resources that would be ideal to start. But we had to start and do something because the need was great and the need was there. And rather than keep an amount of money in the bank hoping to raise more, we decided that people needed care there and then. And as I said, we set it up. And we had a difficult journey in all sorts of ways. We had to go through all the regulatory tests and before we got licensed. We had to register as a foreign NGO in Palestine. Our committee is led by Father Rami Askira, who's the parish priest of St. Catherine's, who has been a superb man in all of this. There are some really, really influential and important people. All people are important, but the big hitters, if I can put it like that, were Leila Asfoura, whose idea this was and who made the original request, Rasha Shamira and Leila and Father Rami. They have been the dynamos that have done this. It's supported by Professor Mariam Awad from the university and assistant professor, his name is Jacob Sleeby, who's at the university as well in Bethlehem.
Well, you live in the UK, so
I
does
do.
this mean that you love Bethlehem and you love the Palestinian people?
Well, yes, but that wasn't it wasn't that sort of love. What happened was that I live in the UK. I first went there in 2000 and I went on a pilgrimage. I went back, I led another pilgrimage in 2010. 198 of us went. And in that, we spoke to Leila again, who's Leila Asfoura of Leila Tours. And she was telling us about the difficulties that were being experienced there at that stage with caring for the elderly. And there was a
Yeah.
big drive at that stage. And we we had a whip round, we had a collection, and we raised $4,000 and we gave it to Leila. Now, that was on the 9th of April 2010. By the end of May 2010, she had set up St. Martha's House, and that catered for elderly ladies. And we started off originally because it was rented accommodation. And we started off originally to try and help raise money to make it a permanent feature, to get our own premises and what have you. We weren't very successful at that. We raised some money, but not enough to buy land to build a new building or to take on that project. She had got assistance from somewhere else. And that's when she came and said, look, we do really need a hospice. And she was joined in that by the then parish priest at St. Catherine's, Father Nirwan, who said, really, this is urgent. And we, if you like, changed tack and set up a hospice service. And 2 years later, in real time, it was up and running because COVID knocked a couple of years out of us and nobody did anything. But as I said, we hope we use the time well to set up the infrastructure in Bethlehem to support that, what we're doing.
Is this bringing dignity to those before death?
Well, it has to really, hasn't it? Because I suppose it's a hallmark of that type of terminal illness that it's continuous pain and continuous intense pain. And I'm not a medical man, so I don't understand and wouldn't be able to describe to you all of the effects of all of the symptoms. But the truth of the matter is, it affects everything. It affects the whole being. And it makes people feel awful and worthless and really question the value of living. Now, what we're doing is providing pain control equipment and putting some quality and dignity, to answer your question, back into the lives of those that our people are treating. Because it's not just treating the symptoms, it's treating the whole person and it's helping their families. And that's tremendously important in trying to bring dignity to a person in terms of who are really helpless in all sorts of ways. They really are in a stage where they are completely helpless. And what the effect and the assistance we can give. I mean, sadly, and this is part of the reality, we can't cure, and nor do we profess to. But we can and do increase the quality of the life that remains and give that environment a much better quality of life to the family and to the patient and to his or her family. And the truth of the matter is that as we see it, nobody should have to die in pain.
Is it just the Bethlehem area that you provide for?
Well, at the moment, yes. And the Bethlehem govern it. We started there because we were asked to. And then we found out, and I don't think they knew, and we definitely didn't at the time, that there's been a huge explosion of cancer, reported cancer cases, I should say, to be precise, in the Bethlehem Governorate. It is the highest incidence of cancer within the OPT, within the Palestinian territories, of cancer diagnosis. An issue with part of this is that other research has shown us that 7 out of every 10 who are diagnosed with cancer are already at stage 4, terminal stage, before they're first diagnosed, which means that 70% of those diagnosed have no treatment options other than palliative care. And palliative care doesn't exist or didn't exist before the 1st of August. So that's the situation. And, people are doing their very best. The hospital at Beit Jala, Al Hussein Hospital at Beit Jala, and they've now opened a new facility in Beit Sahur. And people are doing their best, but there are limits. And I know that the authorities is working with the World Health Organization in looking at how it might respond. And we have spoken with them because they were interested in how we were finding it, because we are the only people who are doing this. And we're also talking to folk as to what might happen in Gaza when everything settles down and how cancer might be looked at there. And that's hugely important. But the experience that our nurses are gaining at the moment is going to be invaluable across the board to them and to the future, as well as to the patients and the present.
Now, finance is important. Is your money from people in the UK with a heart for the Palestinian people?
Well, I believe it is, but I don't think that's the main driver. Finance is important. Our money is from a small area of Yorkshire, I believe, that has a heart for the Holy Land. And I think that's where the original link came. And I don't think we've worked on it. I mean, the differentiation between the Palestinian people is to us anyway, a new emphasis, because it was those people in the Holy Land. And I'll tell you how that came around. I've led several pilgrimages out there. And what we did is we made it a feature of our visit to go behind the pilgrim trail, if I can put it like that, and go to parishes and go to Christian communities and spend some time with them, talk to them. So we got a different perspective. If you come on pilgrimage, and we've all done it, I've done it several times, and drive through and look at the sights and take all that in, important though it is very important as far as I'm concerned. You can go behind that and go behind the presentation of the holy places, as it were, to the reality that is the Holy Land. And that is still a place of suffering, as well as the holy places. It is still a place of want, and it is a place of suffering, and it is a place that needs our help. And it was from that perspective that we came back and talked between ourselves and set up the charity and supported it. And over the years, it's just a small area that has raised the money. What we're doing at the moment is trying to broaden that and make that appeal much, much wider and make the situation much, much better understood.
Has the war affected the work? You're a long way from Gaza, but does that affect in different ways?
Yes, it does. What was the first way, and it was an important way, is as we were setting up, this is actually before the war, when we were setting up this operation, although there was training available in Jerusalem, we couldn't get permission to have our nurses go there. So we had to send them to Jordan to be trained. That affects the finance and what have you. But what happened since the war was the security lockdowns that are in place across the piece have impacted on our ability to move freely, or our nurses' ability to move freely. We had a nurse who lived in the Bethlehem Governorate, but the wrong side of the checkpoint, and hasn't been able to come to work. She hasn't come to work at all. She's down the Hebron side, and she hasn't come to work because she can't. She can't come through the checkpoint, and that was that. And we have another nurse who lives in Jenin, but she has come back to live with her mother in Bethlehem so as that she can do her job and attend to the people. And I think I would want to say this. One of the real proud and real just indicators of commitment is that our nurses have not been impeded, and they have gone out every day, no matter what the circumstances are on the ground, to their patients and brought their treatments. And they're still doing that. So yes, the war does impact. The war does impact in terms of mobility. It impacts on our partnership with the Augusta Victoria Hospital in Jerusalem. We pick up things. If they've got a patient who wants something urgently and we can, then we will look after that patient for them. They can't come out now as they used to do that. But we are of necessity limited to the Bethlehem area now because of the security lockdowns. Our ambition, of course, is to, money permitting, develop this service across the piece, develop this service across to other towns and villages outside the Bethlehem Governorate when we get the money. And we still hold an ambition to build, provide, call it as you will, a embedded hospice facility for the care of those who need it, in terms where home care is not the answer. We still have an ambition to do that, and we hope to launch an appeal later in the year to do that. But the emphasis now is to sustain the service that we started and make sure that in all that's going on, and because all eyes are elsewhere at the moment, we're able to keep going.
Now, you are a Christian organization. Is the spiritual
Yeah.
aspect important?
Yes, of course it is. I mean, that's what drives us. That's what motivates us. It's love of God and love of neighbor. And it's as simple as that. And that's what's taken us to this place and to this time.
What made you want to get involved?
Well, as I said, I led pilgrimages there. I was asked, I saw the need, and I thought that we needed to respond to it, or I needed to be a part of whatever responded to it. It is my neighbour suffering. I don't have to live beside him. Or those suffering in Bethlehem are as much my neighbour as those suffering down the road here in Sheffield. So that's my motivation, and that's why we've stayed with it. How we got here, I couldn't even tell you. I think it's part of the providence of the good Lord, that things that I've set out to do that I couldn't do. Actually, when I think about it now, I'm delighted I we weren't allowed to do it, because other things emerged and we made other decisions. For example, we looked at many, many premises in and around Bethlehem to set up that embedded hospice. We had many of them. I remember one night, and the details don't matter, but I remember one night sitting down in a house where we had the contract on the table ready to sign, and a family member said, no, I don't want to do this at that stage. So we had got out from the UK for the sole purpose of signing it up and making it happen. And another offer came, I'm sure, for their property, and they thought it more attractive. And it was literally sitting at the table with a pen in my hand. So there have been ups and downs, but the Lord provides, and we
Mm.
just keep going and have faith.
Tell us about part of your project, Schools for Bethlehem.
Yes, I mean, the Schools for Bethlehem is very interesting because when we looked at it, Bethlehem, of course, is an international name, isn't it? It's well known. And we set up within the Catholic schools in this diocese a Schools for Bethlehem campaign. And what that did was and it's focused around Christmas Advent time. And we invited all of the children we brought Christmas cribs, into the schools and exhibited them. And the idea came from that exhibition of International Christmas Cribs, which is in Manger Square in the municipality building. Do you know it?
Yes, I do. Yes.
So I looked at that and I thought, well, yeah, maybe we could do something like that. So we decided we'd do that here. And we brought collections of Christmas cribs to a number of schools to start with. And it went down very well. People were delighted with it because it was part of the educational program. It was part of the Christmas story. And it helped children understand better what was taking place. And we did that for a couple of years. And now we've got people ringing us and saying, can we do it? But also what the children do is to have their own Christmas cribs and Christmas crib competitions. And they'll have a day where they'll display all that they have made. And they're fantastic because they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And it raises the profile. It tells them we're there, and we get good support from the schools. That helps to keep us going.
What is your prayer for the work?
I think the prayer for the work is undoubtedly that the Lord will guide us and help us to bring the service to a wider audience in the Holy Land for his greater honor and glory. It's as simple as that. We are looking at, just to give you an idea of what might develop, on the 1st of August, we started with 11 patients. Our plan was to have an optimum of 32 patients at any one time. And our planning is based on that. Last weekend, we had 59 patients. We had a waiting list. There's 2 children within that. And the calculations are, the general calculations for Bethlehem, would be that there's about 250 patients in need of palliative care at any given time. And our extended service, which is putting us to the pin of our collar, caters for 59. So there's still a huge unmet need just in that government alone. The next highly significant place with cancer reported cases is Jericho. And if and when the money comes, and please God it will, because then we would look to set up in Bethlehem and extend to places like Jericho and Nablus and Hebron and other towns and villages that have got nothing now. But there's mountains of pain there. We are working here, and it's very hard to get people to make that empathetic, if I can put it like that, connection between suffering in a foreign place where we don't know and ourselves. So what we've done in dealing with this is we bring people on pilgrimage so that they can see themselves, and we don't have to make it a theoretical exercise. And as I said to you earlier on, part of what we do when we go on pilgrimage is we go behind the pilgrim trail and we go and meet the people and talk to the people and listen to them about how and where and what we can achieve. I think it's in the future, and I won't see it, but it will be a prominent service and taking care of a huge, huge unmet need to the people of Palestine. It's as simple as that.
What is your website for people who'd like to know more about the work that you do and also want to give to the work and bring dignity to many of these Palestinians who are suffering in their last days of life?
Well, the website is www.bcandht.org. So it really means www.bethlehemcareandhospicetrust.org. And you can find more information on there, and they can donate directly through there. If anybody wants to make contact direct, they can do it at hello@bcandht.org or to trustee@bcandht.org. Any help we can get in all sorts of ways. It doesn't have to be a donation. If people can give up their time and their expertise and volunteer with us, that would be a help also.
Great. Well, Joe, thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you.